Welcome to the world's very first Char Siu barbecue pork showdown. Sous vide cooking versus combi oven.
請問大師，一生人食過最好食嘅係咩嘢？施主，呢個問題應該要問返你自己。
This is one of my favorite things to eat, and it's been one of my life missions to figure out how to cook restaurant quality Char Siu barbecue pork from the convenience of our own homes. Over the years, I found that the best thing to do is to layer flavor into the pork. Light soy sauce, dark soy sauce, and Chinese 5-spice powder is the base layer of our flavoring. Brush it on and marinate for 10 minutes. This is not a traditional way of marinating the pork, but this guarantees that the saltiness will marry well with the sweetness in the overall flavor. For the second layer of marinade, take some char siu sauce, red fermented bean curd, we call this Lam Yu, and a teaspoon of the liquid as well. You can find this in most Asian stores. A few teaspoons of honey, and please, use the cheap type. Don't use your mom's Manuka honey. Chinese rose wine, we call this Mui Guai Lo. A splash of Shaoxin wine as well. Now the wine is optional, you don't have to use it, but when you do, you'll thank yourself for it. And finally, a splash of fresh straw soy sauce just to bind up all the flavors. Whisk that up and marinate the pork. Make sure the pork is heavily coated. The pieces for sous vide will be marinated for 10 minutes, and the pieces to be cooked in the combi oven will be marinated overnight. After 10 minutes, this competition can officially start.
比賽正式開始。
For sous vide, we'll vacuum pack the meat in a bag and cook at 60 degrees for 12 hours. During this cooking process, the connective tissue will melt and the meat fibers will loosen up, delivering a tender, loving mouthful of succulent meat. This method of cooking is super popular with fine dining restaurants, but has yet to be adopted with Chinese cuisine. 12 hours later, I can immediately tell that the char siu is super tender. What's more is that we've gained this wonderful liqueur from the cooking process. Now we have to caramelize the marinade back onto the pork. The reason why we only marinated the pork for 20 minutes is because marinating for longer could break down the fibers a little bit too much and make it a little mushy. Char siu flavor is locked in, now it's time for honey. If you don't have honey, you can also use golden syrup. Sear this final layer of honey to lock in that barbecue flavor. And now for the combi oven version. I got these small meat hooks from the local market so that I can skewer them through the pork and mimic how char siu restaurants hang the pork to roast it. Cooking this way is much like cooking chicken in a rotisserie oven, but the juices that come out during the cooking process coats the meat and creates more flavor on the surface. What's more is most professional kitchens use the combination of steam and dry heat to ensure the juiciest piece of meat. A typical home cook would roast the char siu flat, and that requires a longer cooking process that would risk drying out the meat. My oven has been preheating at 200 degrees. Now I'll use steam and dry heat at 200 degrees and cook for 10 minutes. Brush one more layer of marinade on top. Set the combi oven to cook at 120 degrees for another 15 minutes. This barbecue pork showdown is inspired by the 1996 Hong Kong movie God of Cookery. Actor, director, and Hong Kong legend Stephen Chow created this dish, yin xiu wan fan, which translated means a dish that is inspired by the ecstasy that you get when you come out of dejection. For the main character, that was char siu barbecue pork on rice with a fried egg. Back to the char siu. Brush on a layer of honey. Continue to roast at 120 degrees for 10 minutes. And look at that glaze. It's important to rest the char siu for at least half an hour before you slice it. This is the combi oven contender. It's really exciting because it really looks restaurant quality. This is the sous vide version. It's super tender to the touch. Don't worry if the pork is cold, it's supposed to be that way. The heat from the rice will warm it up to the perfect temperature. Identical portions of rice, identical portions of vegetables, and an excessive amount of char siu. Fry some eggs like the god of cookery himself. Or with some hot oil in a pan. Drizzle some sweet soy sauce on top of the egg. For the sous vide version, I've used its own cooking liquor. This shot is designed to make your mouth water. Let's find out which char siu barbecue pork reigns supreme. Which one to start with? Sous vide, 12 hours, 60 degrees centigrade. You can actually see the tenderness. I think we've maximized the potential to get a soft, tender, and succulent piece of meat. But it's lacking in that char siu barbecue pork approach to it. We still have the charred honey on top, which really adds to the flavor, but really doesn't give you that sort of like the bite that you want to get from a Cantonese barbecue pork. Combi oven. This looks so legit. That is a great piece of meat. The steam really helped penetrate through the meat and keep some moisture and juiciness inside the meat, but you still get that crispy, charred piece on the end that really tastes restaurant quality. That rose wine really comes out. That has a lot to do with the marinating process, but also that it wasn't particularly cooked away. It's still slightly alcoholic in the center, and I think that that has a lot to do with the steam. Combi oven wins this one. Thank you for watching Chinglish Cooking Club, and thank you Stephen Chow for making this iconic movie.